All right.
So we have a logical reasoning question here. It's test 65, section 4, question 14. Um, I'll go ahead and read the passage, Nathan. Maybe if you want to read the answers or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably just stop you after a sentence, right? I mean, the really good way to teach this stuff is to just kind of demonstrate our thought process.
Yeah.
And it's not like we read the whole argument and then think about it. That's what
Yep.
students tend to do, right? Novice students, especially, read through the whole thing and then turn their brain on.
Yes.
That ain't it.
And they don't grapple with the stuff that's mildly confusing. Instead, they press ahead thinking that somehow the future sentences will clarify.
Right. Right. Which is just bad reading comprehension practice generally. You need to
Yeah.
understand the first bit before you can move on to the second bit. The second bit is probably not going to explain the first bit. It's probably going to get muddier the farther you go if you don't comprehend each bit as you read. So go ahead.
Yeah. So this is question 14. It says, geographer. Because tropical storms require heat and moisture, they form especially over ocean surfaces of at least 23 degrees or 26 degrees Celsius, which is 79 degrees Fahrenheit, ocean temperatures that global warming would encourage.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So immediately, the first thing I noticed was the word require. Tropical storms require
Yes.
heat
Mm-hmm.
and moisture, which is
Yep.
indicating a necessary condition, not a
Mm-hmm.
sufficient condition, but a necessary condition. So necessary means without heat, there will be no tropical storm. Without moisture, there will be no tropical storm. Even if you do have heat, though, and moisture, that's not a guarantee that you're going to have a tropical storm because these are necessary conditions, not sufficient conditions.
Correct.
Okay. The second thing that I noticed, I mean, that was all in the first, half a sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The second thing that I noticed is it says ocean temperatures that global warming would encourage.
Mm-hmm.
So putting the pieces of the puzzle together,
Yep.
global warming makes the oceans warmer,
Yep.
encourages the oceans to be warmer. It doesn't necessarily 100% force them to be warmer in all situations, but it stands to reason that like Earth is getting warmer. This tends to encourage warmer ocean temperatures, and the warmer ocean temperatures provide the necessary components for tropical storms. So putting all of that together into one thing, it seems as if global warming is going to encourage the formation of tropical storms, specifically by creating the conditions that are required for a tropical storm to appear. Doesn't guarantee
That's
that they're going
exactly
to
right.
happen, but it
No.
does tend in that direction.
It increases the opportunities for it to be possible to
Right.
have those tropical storms, and therefore it stands to reason that the tropical storms frequency will increase.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't seem like global warming is going to reduce the incidence of tropical storms, right? It
That would be
seems
strange.
quite a bit more likely by making these necessary conditions true. Seems more likely that you're going to have tropical storms.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I would say it's safe to say that if you didn't put these things together, if you didn't realize that global warming was likely to increase, I'm not saying it does, but that it's likely to increase the incidences of tropical storms, especially over oceans, then you're not reading carefully enough or slowly enough, and you're not thinking about each part of this sentence. Keep in mind, this sentence was just one sentence and it had 3 parts, and you need to understand each of them.
Well, yeah, because this is not the kind of reading that you did in college where you had way too long of reading assignments.
Mm,
And what you were really going to do is you were going to skim half of each one, right?
yep.
That's what most people do in college. That's not this. This is a lot more like computer science, where every single line of code actually matters, and you really have to understand what's going on with every single bit of it.
Yep.
So students almost universally think that they read too slowly and they need to read faster.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost never actually true. Students read too quickly. They don't read well enough. They don't pay enough attention to each one of these little bits. It all makes perfect sense. It's all going to add up, but I have to do the math, right? I can't just skim through this and not really get it. I have to do the math as I go. I have to pay attention to the pieces and parts, and be on guard about ways that they might try to bullshit me too, right? The primary thing I'm worried about after that first sentence is that this geographer is going to turn around and confuse sufficient for necessary,
Mm. Yep.
right? They said that these conditions are required. They could easily turn around then and say, oh, so therefore global warming is going to for sure cause an increase in tropical storms.
Yes.
At which
At
point
which
I
one
would go, whoa, those were
they say,
necessary
yeah,
conditions, not sufficient
probably
conditions.
true, but not
Right,
necessary. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
right.
Okay, so this geographer continues. For this reason, many early discussions of global warming predicted that it would cause more frequent and intense tropical storms. That
Which,
makes total sense given what we just said.
yeah, that's what we predicted, right? I mean, the
Yep.
first sentence sure does seem to suggest that, but I feel a butt coming.
Yeah. Yeah, I do feel a butt coming, but at the same time, I'm so glad that we did that, because I now feel like I'm standing alongside these fellow researchers. Like, yeah, we all get it. Okay, now
It's
what's the big secret?
it's the number one reading comprehension technique, and they literally teach it to second graders. What do you think's going to come next? We read that first sentence and we predicted, oh, so global warming maybe is going to cause more tropical storms. And that's exactly what the second sentence said. Well, it actually said early discussions of global warming made that prediction.
Yeah.
Right? So it's easy to comprehend the second sentence because we took the time to put the pieces of the puzzle together in the first sentence.
He continues, but recent research shows that this prediction is unlikely to be borne out.
Ooh.
Okay. This I'm going to put a lot of money on as the main conclusion of this person's argument. I don't know for sure, but it sounds like, hey, I told you what some other people think. I gave you a reason for why they thought that. And now I'm telling you that there's some research that shows this is unlikely to be true. And we're probably going to learn a little bit more about that so that we can understand why the prediction is unlikely to be borne out.
99 out of 100 times, if they show up talking about somebody is wrong, that's almost always the conclusion of the argument. This was a very sensible prediction that these people could have made, but they're wrong. Whoa. What do you mean they're wrong? Why do you think they're wrong?
Yeah.
Right. So 99 times out of 100, this next sentence is going to be a premise. They got to explain themselves at this point, right? You don't get to just go into court and go, you're wrong. You have to provide evidence that someone is wrong.
Yeah.
So that's what we're expecting now.
Yeah. And notice we're reading faster and faster. We did the heavy lifting up front, and now we're just cruising.
Yep.
Other factors, such as instabilities in wind flow, are likely to counteract global warming's effects on tropical storm development. Okay.
It's not very satisfying, is it? It's
No,
good.
it's
It's a
not very
weak
satisfying.
premise. It's just
The
other
weak premise.
factors with an example of those factors.
And we don't have any explanation as to why they're likely to counteract them. Although, as a premise, it's like, okay, I don't really understand it still, but if they're likely to counteract them, then maybe your conclusion that this prediction is unlikely to be borne out kind of makes sense. I'm still not really happy with it because I don't have a lot of explanation, but it is what it is.
Yeah, we would want to know more of these other factors. We would want to know exactly how these other factors work. But for now, we know that this geographer has come here to tell us that with this prediction, global warming is going to increase the incidence of tropical storms, is probably wrong. Why? Well, other factors.
Yep.
Okay.
The question says, which one of the following most accurately expresses the conclusion drawn in the geographer's argument? Well, this is over. This is over. We already know what the conclusion is. It's the third sentence. We've already identified it. Now all we have to do is go and find an answer choice that restates that sentence.
Reason number 10,559 why you shouldn't read the question stem first. If you had known in advance that this was a main conclusion question, you very likely might have gone into the geographer's argument looking for keywords.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can see it now too. I bet they put that because in the very first sentence, because tropical
Hell
storms
yeah.
require heat and moisture. People are like, oh,
Hell
evidence,
yeah.
evidence.
There's another one, Ben. It says for this reason
yeah.
at the beginning of the second sentence.
Yeah.
And both of those can be used. The for this reason very frequently introduces a conclusion.
Well, it actually is.
Right? For the previous reason, here comes
Yeah.
the conclusion.
It is a conclusion, but it's a conclusion of the opinion of others, which other people, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And they didn't use any keywords at all to indicate their conclusion or
Yep.
the premise that they were actually using to support their conclusion. This is a beautiful teaching question to specifically teach. Don't read the question stem first. Don't think that you can game this shit. Instead, you really have to read the geographer's entire argument, trying to figure out what they really want. Why are they wasting our time with this? What did they come here to prove? Well, they came here to prove that people are wrong. The conclusion of the argument is definitely that third sentence. The keywords wouldn't have helped you out here at all.
Yep. And look at this. Answer choice A says, tropical storms are especially likely to form over warm ocean surfaces. Okay. That's the opposite of the prediction or of the conclusion. And this is the second half or the middle part of the first sentence, which a lot of people would reflexively identify as the main conclusion because it came after this because clause.
Yep.
And they're like, gotcha.
If you're trying to game it, you just played yourself. Totally.
Yep.
Now, this would be, I bet a Kaplan student misses this question every fucking time. Just picks A because they read the question stem first. Oh, main conclusion, I'm going to look for keywords. Yeah, tropical storms are especially likely to form over warm ocean surfaces. It says for this reason. You know, I learned that if I look for those keywords, it's going to tell me every time what the conclusion is. And sure enough, you're going to fall into their trap. And you're going to think, you know, you'd be so smug when you did it too, because you're going to pick A. You're probably not even going to read B, C, D, or E. You're going to be on to the next with your shitty low accuracy.
And then you're going to blame the LSAT for being subjective and inconsistent when A doesn't work out.
Yeah, totally. That's absolutely, man. People who think that LSAT doesn't make sense, people who think that there are multiple good answers, people who think that it's just, oh, the whims of, what do you mean that's not their main conclusion? Of course that was their main
It could be. I mean, it could be what the geographer was trying to prove. They don't know. I have a friend who's a geographer, and
or like, well, if the other answer wasn't there, it's just that the right answer is a better fit, right? And if that answer wasn't there,
fit. Oh
then
my God,
then A would for sure be the answer, right? No, A is the opposite of their conclusion.
Yeah.
Or I mean, it's actually,
well, it's factually, well,
I don't think the geographer actually disagrees with A.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the geographer did say that warm ocean surfaces provide the necessary conditions in order to have tropical storms. But they went further than that. You know, they got to eventually their other factors that are going to counteract global warming's tendency to increase tropical storms. And they really came here to tell you that these predictions were wrong. All right, let's keep going.
Answer choice B. Contrary to early discussions. Okay. So I'm not hating it yet. Global warming is not the only factor affecting the frequency and intensity of tropical storms. Okay. So the prediction that the conclusion was talking about was this idea that global warming would cause more frequent and intense tropical storms. And the conclusion said, hey, this prediction is unlikely to be accurate, right? It's not likely that global warming is going to cause more frequent and intense tropical storms. Answer choice B sounds to me like something that someone might kind of conclude from this on their own, but it's not the main conclusion as stated in that third sentence.
Nobody ever said that global warming is the only factor affecting
No
the
one said
frequency
that.
and intensity of tropical storms. I mean, that
Yeah.
just, it's misstating the actual facts. So it,
Mhm.
on a main conclusion question, you can definitely get rid of anything that misstates the argument. And
Yeah.
B is misstating what those earlier discussions even were.
Answer choice C says if global warming were reversed. Okay, I'm not reading any further. Do you want to
No,
read any further?
no, because the facts were not about, nobody ever said shit about reversing global warming. I mean, that is
Yeah.
just, it's not what they said. I need an answer that they said, and it's their main point.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't say that shit. Goodbye.
This falls into those categories or that category of answers in which they like to talk about the scenario that wasn't talked about. Right? Like the argument talked about what would happen if global warming, increased. And they're like, well, what if it didn't? And it's like, yo,
Right.
we didn't talk about that.
Right. Yeah.
And those I instantly walk away from.
Right.
D, instabilities in wind flow will negate the effect of global warming on the formation of tropical storms. That is way too strong and not the main conclusion.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. Negate is really strong because what they said
Yeah.
was likely to counteract. My
Yeah.
real problem, though, with D is that instabilities in wind flow was just one example
Sure.
of other factors. And they certainly, their main conclusion doesn't have to do with instabilities in wind flow. Their main conclusion has to do with, hey, these predictions are probably wrong. Why? Well, not just because of instabilities in wind flow, but untold numbers of other factors. But anyway, that's a premise, not the conclusion. So there's a couple things that are wrong with D.
Yeah. One, it's one of many factors. Two, it's too strong. It says likely to counteract as opposed to will negate. Three, it's a premise as opposed to a main conclusion. Here's the thing. If you're winning on the LSAT, you can knock out the wrong answers oftentimes with 1, 2, 3, 4, or infinite reasons.
Yeah, right. That's
That was
one of
a
the reasons why the LSAT infinite. Okay, Trump. Um, sorry, I almost missed your joke.
yeah, it's okay. It's a bad joke, but
It's okay. I should be used to it by now. We're on episode 270, whatever. Nah. But this is again, it's one of the reasons why the LSAT is so damn easy is because the wrong answers are super, super wrong. Not only
yeah.
can we knock this out for one reason, we've got reasons 2 and 3 not to pick D.
Yeah.
All right.
E. Global warming probably will not produce more frequent and intense tropical storms. That is spot on. This
Yeah.
prediction is unlikely to be borne out.
Yep. What prediction? Oh, the prediction that global warming will produce more frequent and intense tropical storms. E
Yep.
is the opposite of that prediction, and they came here to tell you that that prediction is probably wrong.
Notice the
E,
language too. It says probably will not produce, is unlikely to be borne out. Matches perfectly.
yep, nothing different, nothing extra, and it is the main conclusion of the argument, so we can happily pick E.
Yeah. Alrighty. That was test 65, section 4, question 14. If you're curious